So, Trevor Trowbridge, it is now prediction time.
Sure is.
And you and I are going to kick things off, and then Bill Bender's going to be joining us here soon, and he's going to give his prediction for Notre Dame and his preview as well. But I want to start things off with you. You know the drill, man. Tell me how you see the game playing out. Give me your score prediction, and then tell me how you see the game playing out.
I have Notre Dame winning 38-10. Notre Dame's offense is very close. They're very close to crossing that threshold of a very efficient offense. And you saw glimpses of that against Virginia. Unfortunately, they were just called back for issues that were not the receiver just straight up dropped it. Or, I mean, that did happen once. But, in comparison to earlier in the season when it was, man, that play would have worked if the pass protection was better and if Riley Leonard saw that guy and if the receiver ran a better route. Now it's Jaden Harrison gets a 78-yard touchdown reception if the center's hands weren't inside of the defender's face mask, which are very correctable mistakes. I think Notre Dame's offense is very, very close. I think this is going to be one of the most efficient games that you see from them. I think it's going to be a very balanced game, similar to what some of the other box scores have looked like before, 230 through the air, 220 on the ground, 200 on the ground, 230 through the air. On paper, I think it's going to look not as dominant. Now, mind you, I know I just predicted Notre Dame to win 38-10, but I'm telling you, I think when you look at the game and you're watching the game, it's this was a very lopsided contest. I really believe that. So I think Notre Dame has a really good first half offensively. And ultimately, it's going to be one of those games since Army is not able to play from behind the way that they are. I think it's going to be one of those games where you talk about it's pretty well in hand midway through the third quarter.
If the game plays out how you think it does, Trevor, who gets your offensive game ball?
Offensive game ball for me is going to Riley Leonard. I think he made a case to have one last game. Kind of a bad interception there, which I think kind of muddled it. And if that 78-yard touchdown pass to Jaden Harrison would have counted, I mean, I've watched that video so many times on repeat this week. That ball was put on a rope. And if that is a preview for the Riley Leonard to come for a minimum, probably next, 3 games, Notre Dame's offense is going to look really, really darn good. But for offense, for me, it's going to be Riley Leonard.
How about defense?
He's kind of had a quiet last couple weeks, but with Army loving to run the ball up the middle and with their emphasis here, I got Drake Bowen, man. I think we're going to see the Georgia Tech version of Drake Bowen, where the announcers were just, 34 is all over the field, man. I mean, This kid is everywhere. The football's there. 34 is right next to it. This just feels like a Drake Bowen type game. I know there were some people that were talking about it on Navy, but Navy was a little bit more finessey than what Army is. They were trying to get the ball to the perimeter, and
they were afraid to go at Notre Dame.
They were.
Army won't be.
Sure won't. And when I'm telling you, this could be if there's going to be one thing that jumps out on the box score, this could be a 12-13 tackle game for Drake Bowen. I believe so.
Or a game he has 3 tackles because they just keep pulling it and pitching it outside because he's crashing so hard. You know what I mean? I'll say it like this. I don't know what his numbers are going to look like, Trevor. I don't know what Drake's numbers are going to look like, but I have a feeling that Drake and Kanye Udoh are going to get to know each other really well in this game.
I was about to say, I was waiting to give my prediction for game ball on defense because I've been talking all week about how the pads are going to be popping.
Yeah.
I was talking about how Notre Dame's going to need an ice bath after Saturday. Drake Bowen will be at the top of that list.
Yes. Kanye Udoh's a tough kid. Drake Bowen's a tough kid. They're gonna get to know each other really well on Saturday. Because what Kanye will do, he'll not only carry the ball a decent amount, but he'll also be a lead blocker for the quarterback a lot. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring our guy Bill Bender in the conversation because Bill is going to because this is kind of a big game. I wanted to give Bill a chance to speak about this Notre Dame game as well. But I'll give my prediction here, Trev. I'm going 31-14. I think they're going to cover. I don't know that Notre Dame's going to get more than 6 or 7 possessions in the game. I do think Army's going to go on drives. I think Notre Dame's just going to hold them to no points. I don't think it's going to be like the Navy game was. I don't see Army shooting themselves in the foot the way Navy did. I think Army's going to have a tough time holding up with Notre Dame, but 31-14 means Notre Dame scores on 5 of their 6 possessions type of thing. I think Navy gets a score early, and they get a score in the third quarter, and then that's it. And so I do think it'll be a game where we come out of this game respecting Navy, but knowing they weren't on Notre Dame's level, right? Like that's how boy, that's a tough team. They battled, but they just Notre Dame was clearly the better team. So that's where I'm going, 31-14. My offensive game ball, I'm actually going to go with, I think this is going to be a Jadarian Price game. We saw Jeremiah Love last week go off. Jeremiah's now had a couple really good games here recently. I think this is a game where if he's healthy, Jadarian comes out because he got a little bit banged up at the end of the last game. Jadarian comes out, and it's kind of his turn. Jeremiah's been over 100 in 2 of the last 3 games. I think they're going to key on him, and I think that's going to give Jeremiah an opportunity to rip off some big plays. I'd love to see those two on the field a little bit together in this game.
Me too.
Because I just think when 4's on the field, they're just going to be like, hey, key on 4, key on 4, key on 4, which is why I could also see Riley Leonard being that guy. My hopeful prediction is that it's either Chris Mitchell or Mitchell Evans. My hope is that one of the Mitchells, because that would be a great sign for one of them breaking out. But if it plays out the way that I think on defense, I actually am with you. I think this is a Drake Bowen or Jack Kaiser or Kingston game. Like one of those 3 inside backers is just going to go off, and just Bryson Daly's going to be like, I hate that guy. That guy, I'm having nightmares about that guy. So that's how I see that one playing out. So I do think this is going to be a gritty game. I worry a little bit about this game being too physical when you've got to fly out to California the next week. That's my one big concern about this game. But I just don't think they have the athletes on either side of the ball to really compete with Notre Dame. And so that's why I'm going there. So I got Notre Dame winning 31-14, covering the spread. I talked about that yesterday. I do think Army will move the ball somewhat against Notre Dame, at least early. They just won't be able to get points. So I think they'll run some clock off. I just don't think they're going to get a lot of points in this game. So we're joined by Bill Bender, the lead college football writer at Sporting News. Bill, thank you so much. I know you guys did a show earlier today. Wanted to get you in here because I know this is one of the games you guys spend a lot of time talking about. Wanted to get your prediction for this game, Bill, and then just kind of how you see this game playing out.
I mean, yeah, like it would be lazy just to say, well, Navy runs the option, so Notre Dame will be ready for it. I mean, obviously, Army leads the nation in rushing. It's an unrelenting attack. This is his best team. I was there when they played Michigan a few years ago, and they should have beat Michigan in the Big House with a very good team, and they controlled the tempo. You mentioned limited possessions. That's going to be a thing, and I don't think Army will turn it over, 6 or 7 times like Navy did. So my score, shocker, is very similar to yours, Brian. I had 28-14. I think they'll get a few stops on their defense is good too. It's second in the nation. So, homage to 1924, that might take about 2 hours to play this game because I think both teams will keep it on the ground and it'll go quick and they'll have to squeeze in as many commercials as possible. But I like the Irish. I put 28-14 on my prediction and actually feel pretty good. If it's 31-14, they tack on a field goal, that'd be fine too.
Bill, you say 28-14. Do you see it being a game where Notre Dame pulls away late, or do you see it being a game where Army's always playing catch-up and Notre Dame's clearly a better team? Because, that could go one of 2 ways. That could go, it's 21-14, Army's driving, Notre Dame gets a stop with 4 minutes left, and they go down and score to kind of put it away. Or it could be 28-14 where Notre Dame's always a couple scores ahead.
Yeah, I think always a couple scores ahead. They'll jump out, score on the first drive, get out 7-0. Maybe it's 14-0, and then Army settles in and scores, and then you get into you basically trade 2 for 1 each half. Mm-hmm. Army's not going to deviate too much from where they're at. If they can get it to 21-14 at that point, then they would. But yeah, I just see them, Army making the most out of their positions. It's a really good team. The quarterback's really good. Presley's good, and we'll see if they can throw the ball a little bit. But that's where I think they'll run into danger if they get into a 3rd and 7, and that Notre Dame one of the best pass efficiency defenses in the country, and I think that will show up.
That's where they are the most true option team, where Navy's trying to evolve to a team that can throw it a little bit more, and they're not quite there yet, but they do a lot more where throwing the ball is more of a part of who they are. What killed them on Saturday against Tulane is that Horvath went out after the first series, and they had to go to being more of a true option team because their next quarterback can't throw the football. The next quarterback's more of an option, true option guy. Army can they're good at throwing the ball in a traditional option sense, 4 to 6 times a game, play action, big play shots where they catch you. They're not we've got to drop back and throw it. They're not let's speed up the tempo and play catch up because we're down 17-0. That's not who they are. Navy's better built for that, and they're not still built for that. And so that's going to be the thing is if Notre Dame can jump on them a couple scores, that's going to be where the game is decided. If let's say Notre Dame starts with the ball, they go up 7-0, they make a stop, they go 14-0. That next drive is going to determine the game. And can they make it, do they let them come back and make it 14-7 like they did against Navy, or do they make another stop and then all of a sudden the game's over? That's going to be kind of where that game is because Army's just going to keep fighting. They will, and you're going to have to earn this one. So, Bill, we do a thing where we kind of hand out some predicted game balls. If the game goes the way that you think it's going to go, who do you see as being the standout and the star to shine on the offensive side of the ball for Notre Dame? Bill, you're muted.
Of course, once a show, every time. Riley Leonard stays disciplined against this defense, doesn't turn the ball over. So even if he has 140 yards and maybe he runs the ball a little bit, and again, the quarterbacks will play a role in the running game. I know that's such an easy answer and not a very in-depth one, but you get a win against a ranked team like this, and it really sets up next week against USC because, as we're going to talk about as the show goes on today, Notre Dame, the SEC schools are coming to pick at you and pick at your resume. And if Riley Leonard plays well here, that won't be a problem.
Anybody on defense you got your eye on, Bill? Or is this just more of this is going to be a linebacker?
Yeah, it's going to be a linebacker game, right? Don't get beat. And, safety's coming up and filling in that. And the linemen that are going to get cut, it's pretty much a collective. The run defense has to show up here. And I think in that one, like I said, you played Georgia Tech, a run-heavy team without Haynes King, took care of business. They played Navy. They forced a bunch of turnovers. It's a different challenge with Army. But the novelty of playing in Yankee Stadium, I get all that. But it's going to be a fun game. But I think this Notre Dame defense is flexed for the past month, and that will continue on Saturday night.
Good stuff, Bill. I dig it, man. I dig it. So, hey, Trev, appreciate you being with me, man. Very good stuff. Thank you for your insights today. Really appreciate it. We're going to dive into here some big games from the weekend, Trev, but I know you had one big prediction you wanted to give before we get out of here. You've got a team on it. We're going to talk about this game, Trev, but I wanted to give you a chance to kind of give your thoughts because I think Notre Dame fans are going to love to hear this. This is what Trev told me before the game. I said, okay, I'm going to let you make that prediction on live on the show. So go ahead, Trev.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I didn't know if we were gonna cut it off there.
I didn't forget, brother. Don't worry.
I appreciate that. My prediction for this weekend in one of the games, I have Vanderbilt beating LSU 28-27. I do. Somehow LSU has another home night game because I just think they refuse to play at any time that's not past 7:30, I suppose. But what I said is this LSU team reminds me of Notre Dame 2014. Mm-hmm. Started out the season hot. They were very much in the playoff hunt. They were, ranked in the top 10 and starting to be in that conversation of who's going to beat this team. And then in 2014, Notre Dame lost a tough one to Florida State. And then afterwards, I think they went 1-5.
Yeah, they beat Navy the next game and then didn't win again until the bowl game. Mm-hmm. They lost 4 straight, I think, and a couple of those were blowouts. Arizona State beat them by 24, and USC beat them by 28 in a game that they could have scored 60 if they wanted to. Sark called the dogs off on that game. So they just fell apart. And you start hearing the same excuses. We're young. We got too many young guys and a lot of injuries.
But there's a lot of similarities. I mean, what happened to Everett Golson? What happened to Everett Golson that season and the regression that he showed throughout the season is exactly what's happening with Garrett Nussmeier. Mm-hmm. A lot of the excuses are going to be the same. I think there's a lot of the LSU players that are starting to get bought out a little bit, especially now that they're completely out of the playoff hunt. Yeah. So that's my prediction for this weekend.
Good stuff. Dig it, Trev. Thanks for being with me today, man. Talk to you soon.
Of course. See you guys.